The next session will be taken over by implementers. So they'll be responsible. Round of applause for blessings from implementers. They will use the executive speakers. Close the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope we have been having a good day so far. My name is Blessing, and let's save the best for the last. So we are gradually coming to the end of the session, and have special sessions that we've planned for the latter part of the day, and it has to do with communication. Communication is something that affects all of us, and you would agree with me, it is the integral of what we do as non-profits. How are we communicating? Are we communicating to the right audience? Are we moving, the hands of our donors into their pockets to bring out the money? So for that reason, when we partnered with NCBO and Partnership Bureau, we were responsible for setting up this session, which has to do with communication and digital marketing. So we went on a hunt. We went searching to get the best of the best. To be able, people who would come here and then teach us and share with us in languages that we understand how best we'll communicate what we are doing. So to do that, we have two experts. Like I said, we went hunting. It's not been an easy hunt. So we got two people, and then a lady and a guy, just to have the gender balance that we always talk about. So we have two sessions. One is the power of storytelling, and then the other one is digital and social media strategy for non-profits. To take us through the first one, ladies first, the power of storytelling, we have Akosua with us. She's been here since morning. She's a seasoned communication professional, advocacy specialist, and digital marketing strategist with over a decade of experience across various sectors, including education, entertainment, aviation development, banking, energy, construction, FMCG, and tech. She's currently the communication and media manager at Ogyiri, Ghana, where she leads strategic communication to advance access to clean water, decent toilets, and hygiene. Prior to this, she was the communication and PR manager at Action Aid Ghana, and previously served at Stratcom Africa, rising from senior communications officer to assistant manager. Her career began at Charterhouse Ghana, a leader in events and experiential marketing. Akosua holds a BA in Communication Studies from the Ghana Institute of Journalism and an MBA in Corporate Governance from the University of Professional Studies, Accra, where she graduated top of her class. Passionate about purpose-driven work, she blends strategic insight with deep faith, believing that a strong relationship with God is foundational. In her downtime, she enjoys gospel music, investigative themes, and cheering on Arsenal. Ladies and gentlemen, do I need to convince you anymore? With a round of applause, I think we can do better. Join us to welcome Akosua.
Let me ask, what does hearing that I cheer Arsenal on, what story does it tell you about me? Sorry? Yes, I want one person to, okay, thank you, perseverance, yes, somebody will say that okay, you want to try? Thank you. I'm a loyal person. Yes, loyalty. I was hoping that I'll come here very proud and say that my team is in the final, but unfortunately, again, we did what we usually do, but we'll come again next season better. Yeah. Always. So today we are going to talk about the power of storytelling for non-profit growth. There are things that I want us to remember. And so let me start with a disclaimer. Hey. He told me that when I pointed him to the thing, it will work. No. Is it? Please, when we say storytelling, I know that a lot of NGOs are wired to look at storytelling in the context of impact stories, documentation, success stories. Please, no. For today, for the time that we are here, when I mention storytelling, please do not let your mind stay on what you already know. Gathering content, speaking to beneficiaries, all of those things we talk about it. But for today, I beg you, for the purpose of this conversation, when I say storytelling, I'm not talking about what we already know, the ones that we put in the donor report, the follow-ups and the pictures and the improvement notifications and all of those things. No, please. And there's another thing that I want us to remember throughout this presentation, that storytelling is about positioning. At the end of it, I'll ask the two things that I mentioned, if everybody remembers. Storytelling is about positioning. It's about how we position our organizations to attract funding. How do we communicate our purpose? Not just the things we do, because there are two things. What you do on a daily basis, the things that you do in the communities, your initiatives, your projects, your programs that you are implementing. It is different from your purpose. You exist for a reason. So let's say at WaterAid, we say that we exist to make clean water, decent toilets, and good hygiene normal for everyone, everywhere. That is our purpose. And we do that through washing health, washing schools, so many other interventions. So there are two things I want you to fix your mind on. We are talking about how you communicate your purpose as an organization. And we'll talk a little bit about it in the subsequent slides, because a lot of the times we are very fixated on talking about the work that we have done in the communities, that we don't communicate to our donors who we are in a way that aligns our purpose with the donor's purpose. So that's something that we have to, that's a disclaimer, something that we have to intentionally take off our minds throughout this presentation to make it a bit easier. When I think of storytelling, I think about authenticity, because it gives us the opportunity to present the most original version of ourselves. And the thing is, you may not notice this, but as an NGO, you're always telling a story. From your capacity statement, you are telling a story of who you are, when you started, what you have done, who you have done it with, the places where you have left footprints. It's all part of the storytelling. But sometimes we don't look at it that we are telling a story from our capacity statements. Even the concept notes and the pages that we submit to donors, it's still telling a story, because you're painting a certain picture about the problem you want to solve, and you are telling the donor why you are the best NGO or the best organization to be able to solve the problem with their support. And so if you consider it that way, we'll be more strategic and intentional in the things that we do and how we tell the story. A lot of the times we wait to talk about the impact we have made, or we defer storytelling till when it's time for a donor report, or when your partner is coming to visit, or when maybe mid-year, when you are supposed to report back to a donor. That's the time that we are busy looking for progress to be able to include in the report. But if you do not consider everything that you do from the time that you engage the donor as part of your storytelling approach, you will not put in measures in place, and you won't be intentional about what to collect. So it's also important to remember that storytelling is not something that just happens. Remember, I said storytelling is positioning. How do you position yourself from the get-go, from the time you submit your concept note to the donor? How are you positioning yourself for the donor to see you as someone that they can trust, and as someone that they can constantly come back to? Because what we all want as organizations is to have a donor that keeps coming back to you with money that you don't have to convince. Sometimes you're so good at the work that you've done that even mid-project, the project is not over, and the donor is asking you to submit another proposal to extend what you are doing. So you have to, that's what we want, that's the goal, to have repeat support from our donors. So it's important to consider that as well. So why do we tell stories? It's because, well, why we tell stories are two want to address it from two different points. Every time you decide that you want to embark on a storytelling venture, it is important for you to always ask yourself why you are gathering the content you're gathering. Why is a very, very important question. It's sometimes annoying when it's coming from toddlers. Go and bath, why? Go and bring your spoon, why? Sit down, why? Don't follow me, why? It can be annoying when it's coming, especially from toddlers. But in every area of our life, when we ask ourselves why, we are able to do better because we are answering the question. So let's say I go into a community and I have a camera. Usually I go into the communities with a camera and I see a group of people fetching water. Before I hit play, I need to ask myself, why am I capturing this image? Is it because I want to show that they are fetching the water wrongly? Is it because I want to show that the area surrounding the water is dirty and it means that the water could be contaminated? You realize that once you ask yourself why, it changes the angle at which you even want to capture the story. So always ask yourself why. That's the first part of asking yourself why. And the second part is, why do we tell stories? We tell stories because whether you like it or not, Jack, the thing is not working. Yes. Like it or not, your brain is wired to remember stories than facts and figures alone. This woman, Jennifer, said that the mind we are likely to remember stories 22 times more than just facts and figures alone. This does not mean that you do not have to include facts and figures in your storytelling. But what it means is that when you innovatively incorporate stories with facts, it's easier for people to remember, it's easier for your donors to remember. So let me give you an example. This is just a facts that I'm making up in my head. So let's say 13 million women in rural Ghana, example, do not have access to clean water and decent toilets at the place where they seek healthcare when they are going to deliver. That's a fact I've told you. Then I come to you, another approach, and I tell you that imagine a community, say Apumongo, where there's Yempa, who lives about 45 minutes away from the closest church compound. Every time she's supposed to deliver, she or somebody from her house has to carry a gallon of water with her to the church compound to be able to deliver. Sometimes the nurses have to leave her there and go and fight with community members for water. The nurses also do not have water to be able to sterilize the equipment that they use in helping her give birth. And the sad thing is that when your pap delivers, she has to stay with the blood stains on her for 8 hours before she's discharged to go home, to go and bath because there is no water. This story of the Empap is equal to about 30 million other women living in rural Ghana, so. Which one will you remember the next time you turn on your tap? Which one will you remember when you go and visit your friend who has just delivered at the hospital? That is why we tell stories. Imagine painting this picture to a donor. We'll talk about storytelling and donor engagement in a little bit. But imagine painting this picture to a donor and then taking the donor through a certain journey and allowing the donor to see exactly what the problem is and what you are asking them to do to be able to support. This is why we tell stories in addition to everything that we do. Remember that I said that storytelling is not just the things that we put in the donor reports, because if we all be truthful, a lot of the things we put in the donor report stay in the donor report. You got a lot of case studies, a lot of the times, because of the restrictions that maybe a donor will have with the template for reporting or whatever it is, it stays in how you communicate with the donor. So it's a communication between you and the donor. How you are able to package that information into something that will be relevant to the general public or other people outside of your donors is how you position storytelling and how you create the narrative to be able to communicate your purpose as an organization. So it always goes back to two things. Storytelling is not just what you would, and I'll repeat this over and over again. It's not just impact stories, it's not case studies, it's not just about documentaries. it's about positioning and how you communicate your purpose in a way that aligns with the donor's purpose or the donor's aim. How many of us remember the Madame Epiadente situation? And she was accused of being a witch, and she was lynched, I think, a few years ago. There are so many NGOs that have been working on an anti-witchcraft bill for a very long time. I worked at ActionAid, and even years before I joined ActionAid, so much work has been done on alleged witches in witch counts. But we all attest to the fact that the story about Madame Epiadente seemed to have been the turning point in galvanizing a lot of support to voice out and galvanize a lot of support to support the anti-witchcraft bill. And so many people became interested because we were now able to relate all the things that so many other NGOs have been talking about for decades to a single incident, a story about a poor, in quotes, old woman who was lynched because she was accused of being a witch. That's the power storytelling has to influence policy. Every NGO, every non-profit organization is an advocate first of all. And so you're an advocate for the beneficiaries that you work with, you're an advocate for the people in the community that you work with. And to be able to be a very, very effective advocate, the key thing is to be able to tell the stories in the way that gets the people that have the power to be able to cause the change that you want, influence them to be up and doing. And the easiest way or the most compelling way to do that is to tell a story in a way that gets them to do what you want them to do. There are so many other examples that I can cite, but the Madame Epiadente one is a bit more personal to me because I work in an organization that was pushing for an anti-witchcraft bill. And we had done so much work in the past, research, so many things, but we still were not getting the punch. So when the Epiadente issue happened, a lot of NGOs formed coalitions, and now the bill has been passed and the bill has been assented to. So that's a very, very good thing for us to, we can point to it. Even though so much work has been done, we can easily point to the turning point. We can talk about the Arab Spring. People have been complaining about so many things that was wrong in their community and their unemployment rates. But there's always a certain central thing that happens that every other action can always relate back to. That's the power storytelling gives us as NGOs. So whatever it is, whichever area in which you work, whichever sector that you find yourself, always look for the potential of that one thing you can do to be able to cause the people who have the power to change the things, to connect with them emotionally, to be able to do the thing that you ask them to do. Sometimes also, it's not always about targeting the person that can do the change. It's also about targeting the people that can influence the person that can cause the change to happen. That's a different conversation on stakeholders and who influences them and all of that. But the power storytelling has and storytelling gives us is that it allows us to be able to touch so many people from different points at the same time based on how we craft the compelling nature of our story. So there's the part about the emotional connection. You are able to connect with people on a different level when you are able to tell compelling stories. Like I gave the story about the park in Apuwongo. Even though, for instance, I had been telling stories about people in those communities for a very long time, it was when I had to deliver, and I was fortunate enough to deliver in an urban area, and in a place where I had hot water. It was at that point for me that all the work I have been doing in the past made sense. Because I stood there and I had warm water to bath. And that was when I understood why maybe someone is telling me that now they can turn on the tap and the shower and then they are smiling. That's the only time, that was when I appreciated why the person was so smiling, is the shower. But for her, shower is, there are some of them that, because this community has a healthcare facility that has access to water, they have to travel about 2 hours. There's a story of a woman I interacted with who literally gave birth by the roadside because she told herself that the one in her community doesn't have water. So if she has to go all the way to the one that is about 2 hours or 3 hours away from her, that's where she's going to go to deliver because that's where there is water. So these are the aspects of the stories that you can tell that this is a picture that you can paint, or this is a journey that you can take potential donors through for them to appreciate the a lot of words. You can put a lot of figures there, but until they are able to connect the problems with a person, until you are able to humanize what the problem is, it will be difficult to get a support, it will be difficult to get repeat support. So again, another thing to remember is that storytelling allows us to humanize the problem. If you say that, you can say that there are 5,000 road crashes in a day, but you can also tell the story of a life of a 3-year-old who now, whose education is now in limbo because the person who is the breadwinner has died through the careless action of a motor rider, for instance. That's a different impact that you're going to make. Somebody is going to see themselves in that 3-year-old and will be willing to support you, especially if you are talking to individual donors, not institutional donors. By the nature of my work, I interact a lot with the funding and the grants team. And what we always decide or talk about is that with storytelling, remember I said storytelling is not just a case study. So for us, it starts with the concept notes development. How are we walking donor A through a journey explaining what the problems are? And explaining what the problems are, the people that are affected by it, and most importantly, what's the impact of what their support will make. How do you paint the picture for them to see that if they give you $50,000 or $1 million, you will be able to change the lives of 50, or you can change 500,000 people's lives in a particular community. That is what storytelling tells you. Again, remember I said that it is not just about the case studies. We have to paint the picture clearly. We talk about the components of a good story in just a few slides to come. But if you are able to showcase to the donor that this is what their support can do in a very compelling way, I'll show you a video as well. In a very compelling way, it's easier. It speaks more than every other figures or whatever that you put together. So again, if you don't take anything away, remember that storytelling starts from your pitch, your concept notes, and storytelling is not just your success story or case study. It's about positioning and how you position yourself to align your purpose with that of the organization. Donors are looking for how you showcase impact. And right now, I'm sure you all believe that we have moved from demonstration of outputs to outcomes. So you can't say that I organized a workshop and 30 people have come, and that's the story you are telling. No. What's the story? What are the individual stories of the 30 people? What you told them at the conference because of the funding I gave you. How have their lives changed? What are they doing with the information that you use my support to give them? And donors are looking for change that is tangible, change that is verifiable, and change that is real. And when you tell the stories and they can easily point to a community and an individual or a purpose that is changing their life, you get repeat support. It might look more challenging, or it's not as easy as I'm saying. But if you approach storytelling from the angle of your capacity statement, even how your logo looks like, what your motto is, what your vision is, all of these things are telling a story. If you walk into an organization, whether you like it or not, everything about the organization is telling you a story of who they are. If the receptionist is rude, it's telling you a story of who they are, indirectly. If their funding manager approaches you and they don't look confident, it's telling you a story of who they are. If they send you a capacity statement and it's all text, and there are no images. It's telling you a story of who they are. God forbid if you see typos in their capacity statement or whichever marketing material they give you, it's telling you a story of who they are. So again, storytelling is about positioning. It's not a tool or an output that you give a donor. How you are taking the donor through a journey at every point of experience with you tells a story about who you are. And if you do that intentionally and with a compelling approach and tell authentic stories, you will be able to get the connection with the donor right from beginning. And storytelling also helps with building trust. Donors will trust you if you can draw a very, very good line between your purpose, the support they gave you, and the lives that you have touched. This is the component of a powerful impact-driven narrative. It's intentional that I didn't say a story or a storytelling because I still do not want us to think that storytelling is case studies and impact stories and success stories and all of that. But in between all of this, like I mentioned earlier, is your ability to paint a very good before and after picture. Like I said, if you do not incorporate storytelling from the beginning, as in your concept note stage, or from when you walk up to the donor, we always find out that when we get to the point where we are telling the donor what we have done, there's always information we are looking for that we haven't effectively collected or we haven't gathered, or we don't have any information at all. So say you go to a school and you rehabilitate the school and the school is looking all nice. Maybe when you got there at first, you use your phone to take a picture of how the school looks like right now because you wanted to take a picture. You didn't go with a professional and photographer. You didn't interview any of the children over there about their life right now in relating to the school. You didn't talk to the teachers, you didn't engage anybody before. Then you have finished 6 months down the line, the school is looking nice, you are putting the chairs and the tables and they have computers and everything. And now you go back and you want them to tell you what the experience is like. How do you marry the two now? They are only just telling you their experience now. But imagine you had thought about telling the story right from the beginning. So right from your entry into the community, you gathered content right from your first interaction with a student. You pick the student's thoughts of how the current situation is affecting them. And then you finish and you go back and you're fortunate to find the same student, telling the students how they feel. Imagine how impactful that story would be for the donor to be able to see the face of this person now and their face after their support and their face after your intervention. So again, if you only approach it as something that you do or it's something that you give a donor at the end of the project or in the middle of the project or when the donor is coming and the donor is asking for updates, then you quickly gather people to go to the field to go and capture stories, you will always miss out on essential parts of the story, and it will always look like you are, oh, it used to be like this, it used to be like this, but then it's better if you have evidence to prove how it used to be like. And it's also good for you because you are able to demonstrate your credibility to the person who gave you the support, to the donor, that this is how bad it was, and this is exactly how it looked like when I told you in the concept note, so I didn't lie. It adds another layer of credibility to you. So the component of it first is the character. The character here is not your behavior or your subine as the account will say. It's the person or who you want to center your story around. So do you want to center your story around a woman, a problem, a situation? It must always center around something that you want to change. Then the challenge, what is the current problem? Every story, no matter whether it's a story that is just talking about your purpose or talking about the results of your intervention, there must be a part about the challenge that you saw, and then your resolution or intervention. This is where, as an NGO or non-profit, you have the most advantage because we all have different approaches to solving the problem. in my organization, our approach to interventions in WASH is completely different from another organization that's, let's say, World Vision's approach to WASH or CRS's approach to WASH. Your resolution or intervention is what sets you apart from everybody else. Remember, the funding space is shrinking. Even for the NGOs that you consider big, the international ones, the funding space is shrinking. We need to start thinking of the next non-profit sitting next to you as your competitor. We don't like to think of it that way because non-profits are all nice, we are all friends, we are all working to help people. But in reality, you need to be able to stand out more than the other person. If you're all submitting different proposals to the same donor, if you all come in a consortium, that is different. But if you approach it individually, you need to be able to stand out. And one of the easiest ways to stand out is how unique your resolution or intervention is and how you are able to project for the donor to see that yours is more sustainable, yours is more innovative, and yours is the one that will give you the best, will give them the best value for their money, or one that completely aligns with what their purpose is. So always look at how you can highlight or amplify your resolution and intervention, indicating the parts of it that is unique. So let's say at water, you can say that you don't just walk into a community and just give them a borehole. You mechanize it to a healthcare facility, we'll pipe it to a school, and we'll pipe it to a community, so that everyone everywhere within the community can have access to water. Maybe that's our approach. Another organization's approach is entirely different. But my ability to be able to communicate that effectively with the stories that I'll tell, with how I communicate our purpose, is what will make the donor look at me and say, okay, these people's, their approach is maybe more expensive, but it looks more sustainable. Because donors are not just looking for the cheaper option. They are looking for the one that is more sustainable. And it's not always that the sustainable ones are cheaper. Sometimes, or most of the time, the approaches or the interventions that are more sustainable are more expensive because it takes a little bit more effort to be able to do that. So that's your best bet to be able to effectively highlight that. And then there's a call to action. Every story that you tell, whether it's your capacity statement, must end with a call to action, which is what you want people to do after you have encountered the story you have told. So if it is in your capacity statement, when I finish reading the 3 pages of it, what should I do? Should I follow you on your social media platforms? Should I always make sure that your content or the story you are churning out has a purpose. The person reading it needs to be clear in their mind exactly what action you want them to take after they have encountered the story you're telling or the content you've given them. So these are some few techniques for crafting compelling stories. Field immersion, I mentioned this earlier. You definitely have to, depending on the nature of your project, you definitely have to be in the area of implementation. For instance, for us, that may be, it involves like capital and buildings and trainings and all of that in the communities. You definitely have to be there to be able to tell a better story. It's not always that it will be the communications person that will be there, but whoever, the one whose job it is to feed you the information should be the person that is inside and understands it and feels it most. I get it that some of us are very creative, that we can still walk now with the power of AI and everything. We can paint a very beautiful picture of what the problem is, even though we are not there. But as someone who has written stories or written scripts for content, both at the time that I was in the community and at the time that information was gathered for me, I can tell you from experience that the content I developed when I was actually in the communities are always better. Because when you enter the community, the whole environment starts giving you a certain feeling, and they start talking to you about, you start talking to yourself about how you want to project this. Whether it's capacity building in a, like let's say in a setting like this. If you come here and you are seated here, you'll be able to do a better report than someone who's at home and looks at pictures and watch videos. It's the same thing. but the feeling is not the same. And storytelling and connecting with people on an emotional level relies heavily on conveying a certain feeling. And honestly, it will be very difficult for you to convey a feeling you have not felt. Authentic voices. Don't tell the stories for the beneficiaries. It's very difficult for us to do when we are talking to, let's say, the focus of your storytelling is a case study, for instance, and you want to talk to them. We want to put the words in their mouth and tell them how to tell us back so that we can get the right quote. I get the need to want to polish what you are saying and make sure that it is in line. But the key thing is allow them to be able to share their own challenges in a way that matters to them so that they don't feel like you're taking away their voice. Donors can tell a story or a quote that you have refined or a quote that you have polished and attributed it to a beneficiary, for instance. Remember what I said about authenticity and how we should be able to create original stories. It doesn't get original more than having the beneficiary or whoever the intervention is targeted speak for themselves. And there's a narrative arc. So that's the beginning, middle, and an end. This part of it will fall in line with the slide I said earlier on. But always start from, like what we call an introduction. It's like what we learned in JHS or SS, introduction, body, conclusion. It should start from a certain point because remember, you're painting a picture, you're walking people through a journey. You don't just start and throw the problem right without preparing their minds or giving them a bit of a background to contextualize what the issue is. And you don't always have to give the background by saying pictures, animations, and illustrations. Always easy to be able to show people what the beginning of the problem is. In the middle, you talk about whatever it is that you have done, and in the end, you can give them the call to action. Emotive language. We have to be able to know how to convince. That's the whole essence of what NGOs, that's what we are always doing. We are always convincing people to give us money. We are always convincing people to give us their support. We are always convincing people to come on board with us and partner us. The language or the script for the content you are gathering and telling your story should be emotive. And data plus emotion. We talked about how it is important to mix the stories with the facts and figures and not just present figures alone. When you combine these two, it's very powerful to get people to remember you and get people to connect. Sounds not coming. We can hear the sound. Okay, so whilst they try to fix the sound, okay, remember, or should allow you to see as maybe you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, remember I said that it's about positioning and it's about taking people through an emotive journey. We have to remember that not every storytelling approach needs to sell an intervention. The most, especially if you're talking to individual women, the most impactful stories are the ones that celebrate our purpose. It helps with fundraising. So the sound is still not playing, but this girl is in a community that her grandmother is old. They've never had access to water. And so an organization goes in there, and then now they have water. And the community leader. Now we have some picture is not showing. Okay. This is hilarious. You want one, you didn't get it. Okay. It doesn't matter, I'll just explain. So the community leader is talking to them and telling them about how they now have water. And then this little girl picks the cup and runs to grandma that I want you to be the first in the community to have clean water. And anybody, if you read this and it's telling you to support, so I put this in there because it's one of my favorite things. This is from work that we did in Malawi, I think. Because we didn't talk about the donor. We didn't talk about the donor that gave us money. We are telling people what we do as an organization. And something like this, if we are asking you to give $5, 10 cents, whatever, it's easier for you to give because you can connect. We all have our grandmas. Yeah, it's the motive. So, media format for storytelling. We all know the written, visual. The part I want to highlight is the digital. The speaker after me is going to talk about it, but a lot of us are used to just doing the documentaries. Now, a lot of NGOs are telling their stories and their impact into podcast series and digital series, and they are doing very interesting things in the work that, based on the work that they are doing. They are telling very interesting stories that get people hooked from beginning to the end. So I want you to challenge yourself living here, not just looking at case studies, documentations, impact reports, or success stories are just the avenue for storytelling. Again, we have to start thinking of how we communicate our purpose, like the way the profit-making organizations do, so that we can stand out. How will you measure it? Essentially, how you measure it depends on where you put the content that you share. And so, shared views, time spent on it, this is on digital, donor conversions, how many people saw it, how many people donated, right from where you put it, qualitative feedback, what people tell you about the story that you have told. So, before I go, don't do this. Don't over-exaggerate. If you are an INGO, and let's say based on the work that you have done, or you're a non-profit, based on the work that you have done, a policy has been developed. You know that there are 20 other NGOs or non-profit doing the same thing that you are doing. Don't tell the whole world that it is only you that did it. You have to use words like you contributed, because ideally not only you would have caused that massive shift. And a lot of, right now, what donors are looking for is how well you collaborate with other organizations within the sector. So please don't over-exaggerate and don't overestimate your impact numbers as well. Don't speak for the people that you interact with. Allow them to speak for themselves. If it's in a language that is not English, you can allow them to tell their story and then you subtitle it. Don't put too many stars in the content you are producing. Remember, we said stories are 22 times more likely to be remembered than facts or figures alone, and so be careful to blend them. With the future of storytelling for not-profits, we talked about AI tools. There's immersive tech. I'm sure my colleague after me will talk about that. And there's user-generated content, allowing the communities to tell their stories. Maybe you can use social media links for them to tell their stories. We talked about how you can transcribe what they are saying as well. And so you can consider that. And this is something I want us to walk away with. What are the two things I said we should remember at the beginning? And storytelling is not just cases and impact stories and all of those things. What I want us to walk away with is that if we only tell stories when students are watching, we miss the point. Storytelling is how we honor our work. You're doing amazing work. You need to tell us what is driving you to be able to get people to support you. So storytelling is how we honor our work, not just how we fund it. So look at it from that perspective and just shift it and remember that, like I said, storytelling is about positioning, and we need to be able to communicate our purpose in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akosua. I think we can do better than that. Thank you. Quickly, we are going to take just 2 questions right now. Can we have like 2 hands up for those who would like to ask questions? Okay, there's one there. The second one. Okay, just 1 question.
Is it that you didn't understand or I over-explained?
You are perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Jipiano Edotoga. I'm from the African Female Initiative. I want to find out, when creating stories, whether that is books or specifically social media content actually, and the subject that it involves is a minor, how do you navigate that, especially when you would want to use their likeness outside for various publications? Thank you.
Okay, so as an organization, you should always have a policy about consent and how you seek the consent. So if it's a child that is, say, 18 years and below, you should identify the child's guardian or the child's parents and seek their consent. And the thing is not just about consent, it's about informed consent. So explaining to them exactly what you are going to use it for. In some cases, I've had to take calendars with me to the field to show them that I'm taking a photograph of you. I need you to sign consent. These are some of the things I can use the image for. So I can put it in a calendar like this, or I can put it at the back of a report like this. Do you agree to it? You should have a form. It's a simple form. I can share a template that we use with you. You can have some for different sectors based on where you work. So children in school, children out of school, somebody who can read, somebody who cannot read, and all of that. So you should always have consent, but the caveat is that it should be informed consent. And you should also know that the person has a right to withdraw the consent at any time. And sometimes it's nice that after you have used their image, say in a calendar, you give them a copy of it. You'll be amazed at how excited they will be when they see that their image is, what you took of them is so beautiful and it's on the calendar, but you have to inform them before you.
Thank you very much, Akosua. Can we please applaud again as we go through?
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Felix. I work with Family-Based Care Alliance. So we help vulnerable children to be raised in loving families. My question is just kind of a follow-up. Sometimes people find it difficult for you to put their images out there. So we even have the consent forms and all of that, because of course donors would request and all of that. But sometimes the beneficiaries, they don't want their images to be put out there, let alone videos. And so how then do we tell our story when the people we are trying to support are not willing to give their consent or let the information be out there?
The unfortunate thing is that if the person is not willing to give you consent, because any attempt of trying to convince the person, if not done tactfully, would look like you are coercing the person. And you don't want the person to feel like because you are giving them support, they do not have a voice in saying no. There are times that we worked on a project, an agroecology project, and we wanted to take a photo or document the success of a smallholder farmer. She showed up in the community wearing a nice kaba and sticks and very nice shoes. We're like, oh, we can't, because if we take this picture, it's going to look like a stage. She says, no, that is how she wants to appear. Because if she wears her family clothes, she won't look nice. So it's either you change the setting, or you take the picture like that and maybe you won't use it, but you can't force them. So that's why it should start from the beginning. So you may have to start prepping their mind from the beginning when you start interacting with them, so that they know that you are able to support them because other people allow you to use their stories to convince donors for support. So if they allow you to use their story, you can help more people. But if the person is unwilling to partake, there's nothing that you can do. You have to honor their voice.